can't stop. Fuck around, make my 40 pop.
Alright guys, we got the full spoilers for chapter 60 of the Boruto manga. In this video right here, I'm not necessarily going to give my full opinions about this chapter. I'm going to save that for the review and when the chapter actually fully does come out. But again, we got a very good idea of exactly what's going to happen in this chapter, and it's separated by about 5 or 6 different scenes. Now I'm going to go scene by scene because that's of course what Organic Dinosaur did, and of course, by the way, I didn't necessarily point this out, these spoilers did actually come from Organic Dinosaur. Now the first thing is going to be Shikamaru, Sai, and Ibiki talking about Code and the intel that they've already gotten from Code. In the last chapter, we pretty much found out that the 5 great nations have set up a search party for Code and anything surrounding Code. But right now, it doesn't necessarily seem like they've actually gotten far. They're pretty much discussing exactly what Code's abilities are. Specifically, they're talking about Code's claw mark. Now, the claw mark itself, they're basically talking about how the claw mark is similar to the flying thunder god of the 4th Hokage. You can literally place these claw marks anywhere and actually teleport to that spot. And the biggest thing in these spoilers is the fact that he has 4 different claw marks on the outer walls of the Konoha village, which pretty much means that he can pretty much teleport to the Konoha whenever he wants to. Now, Shikamaru said in these spoilers that he has teams surrounding all 4 of the claw marks to basically surveil it and basically make sure that he basically doesn't necessarily show up unattended. But he also did point out that this right here could possibly be a diversion to actually take some resources from the inner walls of the Konoha itself. But during these spoilers, Shikamaru did actually say that as of right now, he hasn't necessarily found any claw marks inside the walls of the Hidden Leaf Village. He kind of laid out exactly who Code's actual targets are going to be: Naruto, Boruto, and Sasuke. This right here is a little bit troublesome, mainly because he didn't necessarily name Amado and Kawaki. Now, he did kind of name Amado and Kawaki, but he didn't necessarily say that those were his main focuses. But nonetheless, Sai did actually say that he's going to continue monitoring Amado and Kawaki. Now, the second scene is essentially the scene that had a lot of tension in the last chapter of Boruto manga. This is essentially the scene with Sumire and Amado. Now, in this actual chapter right here, they didn't necessarily say much about Amado's overall plan. So many of these spoilers were still kind of grilling Amado, basically saying like, what do you mean? Can you please explain further? Do you have any sort of ulterior motives? Then Amado says specifically, well, it's not like I'm trying to hide it in particular, but it's just a personal matter. It's different when it comes to Kawaki, the boy himself, you know. And then Amado kind of goes on to assure Sumire that he doesn't necessarily have any intentions of turning against the Hidden Leaf Village. Now, the big thing in this chapter right here, in my personal opinion, in regards to long-term effect right now that we do 100% know of, is going to be the fact that Amado is actually building a cyborg for the Hidden Leaf Village. Now, we didn't necessarily get a lot of information in these spoilers right here, but it does say that Sumire actually did see a silhouette, and Sumire was actually questioning Amado about the cyborg in this chapter right here. Amado did actually say that, again, it was going to be an ally of the Hidden Leaf Village, and Katasuke himself was actually working on it with him, or he's building it for Katasuke. Now, this right here is going to be absolutely huge, mainly because in theory, these cyborgs are absolutely insane. I mean, at minimum, this cyborg can potentially be on the level of Naruto and Sasuke as of right now. So in regards to actual allies against these quote-unquote new Kata organization members, is going to be absolutely huge. And not only that, against other potential Otsutsuki members in the future. Again, it's going to be absolutely huge if that's actually going to be the case. So again, Sumire in this particular situation, she's still kind of confused. She's still not necessarily taking 100% of Amado's words, but again, Amado himself is kind of trying to reassure Sumire that he doesn't necessarily have any sort of ill will towards the Hidden Leaf Village. Now, in the third scene, it shifts to the new Kata organization. We see a scene with Code, Daemon, and Eida. Now, in this scene right here, it actually seems a little bit interesting, man, because it kind of made it seem like Daemon and Eida doesn't necessarily 100% trust Code and not necessarily 100% loyal to Code. Now, the scene started off with Daemon trying to give Code another piggyback ride. Code basically says that he doesn't necessarily want to do it anymore. Daemon is kind of making fun of him, saying that he has no stamina, and then Daemon out of nowhere basically starts to attack Bug. Bug was the person that was originally in Bora's hideout, the person that Code originally went up to and basically told him to open up the pods for the other cyborgs. So Daemon's pretty much harassing Bug, basically headbutting him, but out of nowhere, Code actually used his claws and actually tried to hit Daemon a little bit. Now, this right here is going to be very interesting. Code doesn't necessarily attack Daemon, but what Code does is he lays down these claw marks, and again, he can use teleportation through those claw marks. So the claw marks go all over the floor, they go all over Bug, which was again the person that was in Bora's hideout, and then it kind of skips over Daemon, and that claw mark that was supposed to be on Daemon gets automatically reflected to Code. Now, this right is going to be very interesting, Malin, because before we thought that Daemon could only reflect killer intent. Now this right here could have been 100% killer intent from Code, but I think at this particular point we can kind of now see that it might not only and solely be killer intent. And Code was actually interested in this particular situation as well, mainly because he thought himself as well that it was going to be only killer intent, and also he was trying to catch Daemon off guard, because of course if he'd catch Daemon off guard, that would mean his reflection would kind of be automatic. It wouldn't necessarily be something that Daemon himself is doing. So in the spoilers, it made it seem like Daemon was actually caught off guard, but it still reflected the attack from Code. But still, it's not necessarily confirmed that it caught Daemon off guard, mainly because Daemon looked extremely pissed off right after that scene, and he turned back and looked at Code. So it's kind of like maybe it caught Daemon off guard, maybe it didn't catch Daemon off guard, so we still don't really know. But Code was still trying to ask Daemon a little bit more about his abilities, but Eida told Daemon not to actually answer it. So this right here is kind of, again, a little bit more of the tension that I was talking about that's kind of building in this chapter that, you know, we're not necessarily completely sure about. Now the last 3 scenes are pretty much all about Kawaki, and these 3 scenes is pretty much Kawaki kind of feeling a little bit left out, kind of not necessarily feeling like he belongs in the Hidden Leaf Village. So in scene 4, it basically says that the family made a family dinner for Kawaki, but Kawaki isn't necessarily there, and everybody's basically asking around like, hey, where is Kawaki? So the setting then shifts to a store where Kawaki is actually shopping inside of the store, and he buys something along with some water, and then Kawaki goes to the stone faces and then sits on Naruto's head and starts to eat instead of actually going home for dinner. But Naruto pulls up on Kawaki and basically says, like, yo, what are you doing here? Kawaki's basically telling Naruto like, yo, I don't know if I 100% belong here, this is the village for you, things like that. And then Naruto just picks Kawaki up and then walks home. The scene then shifts to scene 5. In scene 5, they basically go home and they find out that it's going to be a huge feast. Now in this huge feast, Kawaki was not necessarily expecting this, but this right here was like a surprise welcome home party for Kawaki. They start the dinner. Somewhere within the dinner, Boruto's present to Kawaki, notably is going to be his headband. Boruto seems like he's going to be using Sasuke's headband from now on. He actually gives Kawaki the headband. This was like a kind of funny scene where Kawaki actually tried the headband on. Boruto basically told Kawaki that it makes him look weird, and then Kawaki tried another style where he pretty much put it down around his neck. This right here wasn't necessarily intentional, but Himawari did actually say that it was a kind of style, and of course I think this style right here, a draw actually drew this around Kawaki's neck. This right here looked a lot cooler than the other style, and I think at this particular time Kawaki might actually go forward with actually wearing the headband. But in the last scene, this is pretty much when Kawaki and Naruto are pretty much going to bed. It seems like they're in the same room or something like that. Kawaki is actually starting to sleep, but Naruto basically tells Kawaki and gives him this long speech like, hey Kawaki, this is where you belong, things like that. Naruto's essentially trying to comfort Kawaki. Kawaki's kind of warring to the idea of him actually staying inside of the Hidden Leaf Village, but then he also thinks about the scene where he himself is pretty much saying like, hey, I want to protect the Hokage, and then Kawaki stares into his empty palm, and then he has a flashback of Amado's last words, basically offering him to restore the Karma Seal. So the chapter ends with Kawaki actually thinking about getting another Karma Seal back while wrestling with the idea as Naruto falls asleep. And that's pretty much it that happens in this chapter. Let me know what you guys think about the spoilers of this chapter in the comment section below. Again, I gave my surface level opinions, but I'm going to give you most of what I think in my actual chapter review. But it's been your boy Baara B, and we out.
It's a knife.